Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. The St. Lucia National Trust is calling on local authorities to explain why lots available at the Cabot development are already being advertised for sale, when to their knowledge the master plan for the development is still yet to be approved. Jacques Wooding reports.
According to chairperson of the St. Lucia National Trust, Alison King, the trust was alarmed to find out that lots which fall within the Cabot development are already being advertised for reservation and sale. King says, given that to the knowledge of the National Trust, discussions are still ongoing regarding the terms of the Cabot lease. It is very alarming to see that developers would continue to advance the development as if it was set in stone.
Sales are being made against a backdrop of no approval for a master plan. So we will, using whatever legal means we have at our disposal, challenge the DCA in terms of approvals that they've already given, and insist that due process be observed going forward.
Adding his voice to these concerns is professional architect, National Trust Councillor Sean Compton. Compton says his discussions with the representatives of Cabot have revealed that the project was approved under the use of an outdated environmental impact assessment, which was prepared prior to the specifications of a previous developer. He says this ought to be rectified before approval is given for the master plan of the development.
We have had, prior to this dialogue with the developer, we reached out to the developer ourselves, and since this week, I personally have actually been speaking with a representative of the developer, really to see how all of this, all the two hands can meet, and where we can preserve access for locals, where we can preserve livelihoods, and still have the development happen. What hasn't been mentioned here is that the developer has proceeded to date, Alison, next slide, has proceeded to date with clearing the land based on spurious approvals, but also an outdated environmental impact assessment. This was not an environmental impact assessment that was done specifically for this project. It was done for a previous project, and since then, different factors have emerged.
Compton says the National Trust is not anti-development, but instead the trust is pro-sustainable development. He says many developers in past have taught St. Lucia an important lesson about the relationship between development and environmental degradation. He believes it is time for local authorities to take heed. Jacques Wooding, Hot 7 News.
Another St. Lucian manufacturer is set to begin exporting within the Caribbean region at the end of August. Forest Springs, a producer of natural mineral spring water, having been introduced to two prospective buyers by Export St. Lucia, will finally see months-long negotiations bear fruit. This new venture stems from the success of a trade mission to St. Vincent and Grenada earlier this year. While Forest Springs was not on the mission, ongoing market research and technical assistance from Export St. Lucia led to discussions with prospective buyers, making it possible. The first shipment to St. Vincent and Dominica will consist of 2,300 cases in assorted sizes. The second consignment of 2,100 cases will be shipped to Dominica in September. The managing director of Forest Springs said that he was pleased to see that this entire process yielded fruit and the prospects for growth in quantity seem favorable. Former Chief Medical Officer Dr. Stephen King has addressed concerns for the applications of cannabis in the medical community following an article linking cannabis use in mothers to autism in young children. He says, much like many other medicines, there should be professional consultation before a pregnant or nursing woman uses any drug. He went on to note the various applications of cannabis in treating autism in adults. Jacques Wooding reports.
A study published by research journalism outlet Nature Medicine has found that the risk of autism may be greater in babies born to women who use marijuana during pregnancy. The results of the study, which involved more than 500,000 mothers and children, indicates that there is a 50% increase in the risk of autism spectrum disorder in children whose mothers use cannabis containing THC while pregnant. Former Chief Medical Officer Dr. Stephen King noted that it is known to the medical community that cannabinoids can cross the placental tissue and enter the bloodstream of a developing fetus. However, this is a case with many drugs, both legal and not, if they are used by a pregnant woman. He says during pregnancy, there should be a full medical consultation prior to the use or continued use of any drug.
One needs to understand that cannabis does affect the neural system, because the endocannabinoid system, there are endocannabinoid receptors. They're the most widespread receptors in the body, but they are very prevalent in the central nervous system. So there is no doubt that cannabis can affect the developing brain. There's no doubt about that. So that is why there's some negative effects of cannabis on developing brains. And that is why in that recommendation, in fact, we recommend that pregnant women do not use cannabis.
He says science has already seen the abundance of applications for CBD, which is only one of many substances created by the cannabis plant. King further noted that there has been clinical use of cannabis in the treatment of adult autism.
There are wide uses of cannabis. Now, cannabis is not just THC to make you high. Cannabis has, in the cannabis plant, there are well over 80 cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. And there are other chemicals too which have medical action, various terpenes and flavonoids that also have medical action. But just the cannabinoids alone, there are a whole range. Cannabidiol and other cannabis products have been shown to be successful in treating autism in people. Now, that's not surprising because it is a neuroactive compound. Cannabis are neuroactive compounds. So what we are finding is that you can actually treat autism with cannabis. So whereas one study is pointing out that use of pregnant women can increase the chance of autism, but we also have studies which say that you can treat autism with cannabis.
King says as a medical professional, he is in full support of the study and application of cannabis in the medical community. Jacques Wooding, Hot 7 News.
Priest Kailash Leos has expressed that when cannabis is decriminalized and legalized, St. Lucia has the opportunity to benefit from a multi-million-dollar industry. Leos says when the agreement is finalized, he hopes to see balance between the parties who are allowed to cultivate the herb. He says there are indeed vast economic benefits which can be derived from cultivating the plant. Genevieve Gonzague reports.
It is not just about drinking some tea or smoking the cannabis plant. These are the sentiments of the chairman of the Great Physician International, Priest Kailash Leos. He says the misconception that the decriminalizing of the plant will solely be for the recreational, personal, and medicinal use of people should be addressed as St. Lucia stands to make a fortune out of the plant.
The money in cannabis is not only not in smoking cannabis. I remember we were doing some research in Jamaica, and we had to literally pay $10 for one seed. So even the seeds of the cannabis is a big industry. So when you look at the different strains of the herb, $10 for one seed, $6 for one seed. If you're going to buy 5 seeds of a particular strain, you're paying all $100. Right? So it is important that we also understand that the money in the herb is also in research and development. So I develop a plan for my laboratory, and one piece of equipment costs over $250,000.
He explained that Caribbean islands, particularly St. Lucia, need to step up their game when it comes to the decriminalizing and legalizing of cannabis, especially since it can be grown so easily in the region. He also makes the point that once that is done, the investments into that industry should be with people who were already involved long before it became legal or decriminalized.
For the past 10 to 15 years, America and these other first world countries have been busy, very busy, mastering the art of growing the herb and also developing different types of machines. Like Israel have different types of vapes, they have different types of machines that they could administer the herb to patients. So when we say that they are playing Calmason or they're working slowly in St. Lucia, they are about 15 years late. Right, and what the government have to do specifically, they have to just allow the thing to go through, and basically instead of trying to get investors to come in, the thing we need the most is what you call education of the people. That's the first step, and also you need capacity building. How is it that you're going to build the people who already have the capacity to grow and to produce medicines? How are you going to assist them into produce industry quality medicines?
Leon says, as the powers that be look to move forward with the framework for the decriminalizing of the herb, he is hopeful that special considerations be given to the Rastafarian community, not to simply be able to smoke it, but to benefit from it economically as well. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzaga.
You're watching the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Stay with us. We'll be back after this quick break.